One of the more recent programming adventures that I've done is making a test app for every single platform. That includes Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. The actual demo of the thing I made, which I will pull up, is right here. I probably should worry about like epilepsy or something, but it's just a single frame buffer that's written to. You can resize, full screen, minimize, exit, whatever. That's pretty much it. The code for this is insane, and as is the case with every other platform. The one I just showed you was made with XCB, not XLib, which probably would have made things a bit easier, but still. My point stands. They're way more complicated than they need to be, and evidently here I don't really like them too much. I don't. How do you say that? What's that phrase? I don't take kind to them or something. So, the first platform I want to talk about is Apple. Apple, a while back, merged with Next. Or it might be Next Step. I'm pretty sure the company's just called Next, and then their computer was called Next Step. Either way, Next Step used Objective-C, and in order to maintain compatibility, they use this OBJC message send thing. And they had some ABI stuff, which I don't understand. All in all, quite terrible. If I were to open up something, right? I'll use Nano for this. Or, no, actually, no. I'm not going to use Nano. We're going to use Micro, because that I can tolerate. So, it's not enough to just say this, right? Let's say I want to send like 1, 2, 3. First, I have to typecast it to a function pointer, and you have to use this. Which, yeah, and you had to do hundreds of these, so if you have to do something like that, may God have mercy on your soul. And it changes this every single thing. And instead of just using, like, I don't know, a function call or something, which would have been way better, they decided to go with this mistake. And then you have this CG stuff. I don't think the color space is really necessary. Maybe it is for like 1% of applications, but it's just assume sRGB, like, 24-bit true color by default, which it has been the default for like basically everything. So if someone wants to actually modify the color space, they should do that on their end. They should like have some frame buffer and they modify whatever. Alright, for Windows, pretty much everything is in a callback to the point where it is madness. Everything's a macro, and this is because of legacy stuff like in the 80s, pointers and stuff, you had long pointers. That was a fun time. I wasn't alive for it, but I definitely feel its effects. So then you have this macro mess like 50 years later. And then Windows made another mistake by jumping on the Unicode train too early. And they used UTF-16, which is not at all compatible with ASCII. If they waited until UTF-8 came around, then things would have been different. But nowadays, we're left this A and W function, which I think most of the time isn't even a function, it's a macro. But That's a whole other thing. Translate message, it's like for keyboards or something. The window proc events really should not be called back. I find that ridiculous, but those are my grasp about Windows. With Linux, this means non-existent. I don't know how to spell it in English, so you're going to have to live with that. There's this Pixmap thing, which doesn't need to exist. Graphics context is also a legacy thing because on X11, or I guess like X10 or whatever versions they used back then, the server would do the graphics, right? So this is just kept around. And this is more for XEB. I'm not too sure about Xlib. I'd imagine it's better. It's either incomplete, like the official documentation will have like to-dos in it. It's usually like 10 years old, or non-existent, which is what that means. He had this Atom stuff because of features that window managers would need that you cannot like plan for in advance. This feels like a band-aid to me. And then you have put image and copy area, which feel redundant. The response type has no reason to have to use bit logic to get. I find that crazy. But that's pretty much all of the... what's the word I'm looking for? That's like all of the like specific issues. The common issues with them is events. You can't just say key.a. You had to get the event for key.a. It's like for mouse position, I shouldn't need to say, oh, there's an event, the mouse moved to here, you know? I should just have the mouse position. Another thing, it should not be a big agenda thing, right? Pretty much all three of these are. Apple, you have the messages. Windows, you have the callbacks and stuff, right? They all have big solutions that demand you to work their way in order to like run. Every single one of them need libraries, and I am counting frameworks on Mac, even though it's not like an external library on like Linux. With resizing, if something like resizes, you have to like manually like reallocate a frame buffer if you're using one, which the window manager should just provide you one that's memory mapped in its memory, that when you disconnect, it will just go away. It'll free up those resources on its own. All the time, this is a problem on X11, or no, it was on Mac and Windows too. You had to copy the frame buffer, and so just having one in memory, which is a massive slowdown. So I'm gonna try and hack at the roots of this. The requirements I'm putting on myself for this is the library should be like around 100 lines of code, and it's a single header file. No system calls or socket sending inside of the main loop. Frame buffers need to be provided, double buffered front and back. Have a memory mapped window structure for communication in the main loop. I have some example code that demonstrates what I'm talking about some more. And then, disconnecting, freeing all the window resources you have. Zero trust, that's just, don't have like authority. It's like, you don't be like X11 where everything's allowed. Be more like Wayland. Wayland does this correct, even though it does it in a horrible way. You had to like set up the screen and stuff. Although I think it does save the apps, which I'm not going to do. Icons, I'm unsure how I'm going to do it. I'm probably just going to have like a 32 by 32 buffer of RGB. So I'm going to do a fun project. I'm going to call it Mirai, because Mir was a desktop server that didn't catch on. So, these are the requirements of this, more specified. Everything will connect through a predetermined socket file, one called the get a window struct, or like a screen share. Disconnect freeze everything, automatically resize buffers, front and back buffers, single header with a window struct and some helper functions, and that's it. The example code for this looks like this. You have a connector, and it's probably, I'll probably have to change this, because there's like sock address T, but it is a Unix socket, so maybe I can get away with not doing that. I'll have to see how that turns out. For a window, we'll just, it's one call. We get a memory mapped struct. We can set the title. We can say that we changed it. Or the helper function can do that for us. Or it can send the change, right? If you want like a non-blocking version, you can do something like non-block. Or if it's not like ready, it'll return a boolean. That can also work as well. For the pixel, this is a struct that's given. It's just 4 properties that help with like pixels and stuff. So we just loop through it. We do some fancy color stuff. And then the reason I'm doing this is so I don't have to do like multiplication every time I set a pixel. At least, I already doing 3 multiplications, but I don't want to do more is my point. You swap the front and back. And let's resize the window struct. Well, there'll be a public window struct that the user has access to, and then like some additional information as well that the window manager only has access to. Theoretically, you can just do like negative indices or something, but it's not too bad. And then if we want to clean up, we set it to true. This is mainly if you have like multiple windows and like it's closed and you're done with the buffers. I'll have to see how I feel about this one, because it can be closed like in the middle of this loop, but I feel like with the swap, that means like, you're basically done, right? I think the swap, if the window's no longer open, it should just free all the resources, because the user isn't gonna like write stuff, down here. That's just not gonna happen. We can close the socket, return 0, and then that's it. We have like a common socket file, so you can connect to multiple servers. That's not really a feature I planned much, but you can do it that way. Another thing is that this is like basically already multi-threaded. Or I guess a better way to say it is I suspect multi-threading will be much more simple. Because like you can put a lock on like the pointer or something if you're doing something concurrently, which you shouldn't do anyway. You should just have it parallel. Because what's the point of having multiple processors if they have to wait for each other and basically they're single threaded? That's a whole other discussion for another time. That's basically it. If I have time, I don't know, I can try making it. But that's basically all I have to say.